3. Hello everybody, my name is Dawn Campbell and welcome to another IAPC&M CPD and Business Building webinar. I'm here today with Ben. Welcome, Ben.
Welcome, thank you.
Ben Commins is the executive head teacher. He is also the mental health first aid trainer and public speaker, and Ben has been in the teaching profession for about 20 years. His experiences as a head teacher helped him shape his vision and ethos, and later opened a centre of excellence for wellbeing. I met Ben through one of our members, an accredited fellow mentor, Stella, and we've been in discussions since then about creating our own centre of excellence within the IAPC&M for our school coaches specifically. And we got talking about his training for mental health first aid. And I know he's played a lead role in this program across England for some years. And in 2017, actually won a national award for young people and well-being. He's an executive head teacher, and Ben also works extensively with head teachers and school leaders, helping them to overcome the challenges within their roles so that they're able to maintain their humanity, joy, love for the profession and the communities they serve. Now, I always like to find out something perhaps special and interesting that people wouldn't ordinarily know. And what Ben told me was that before he went into teaching some 20 years ago, he was a professional rugby player. So yeah, he's obviously been beaten around the pitch quite a few times, and be glad to be on the other side of the field now, cheering. So over to you, Ben. Let's look forward to a 45-minute content-rich webinar on why it's important for us to protect our mental health well-being, how we can help our clients, and then hear more about the training and the special discount that you've offered our members, please.
Brilliant, thank you. Firstly, I'm going to apologise because I am in school, so it's if you do hear children, that's the nature of the school, so I do apologise. As we said at the beginning, it's been a real pleasure over the past 7-8 years embarking on a whole school approach to well-being. And today I will take you through my story, how I ended up being a mental health first aid instructor, how that shaped the school. Now, when I talk about the school, we can apply this to any organisation, so it is interchangeable. And the benefits that have come through having an approach like this. So as we rightly said today, you're going to see a focus on mental health and the long-lasting benefits it can have to all, a strategic approach of how I've used it as a tool for success, and how your window on the world impacts on how we approach others. And I will go into that in a bit more detail. Before we start, I just want you to ask yourself, are these true or false? So I thought I'd start with a little quiz. And the first one is mental health is the second largest cause of disability in the UK. Keep it to yourself, true or false. The second question, the economic costs of mental health illness in England have been estimated at 105.2 billion each year. Number 3, among teenagers, rates of depression and anxiety have increased by 50% in the past 25 years. Number 4, the UNICEF survey in 2007, the UK ranked at the bottom on children's well-being compared with North America and 18 European countries. Number 5, 10% of primary school children suffer from a low sense of well-being. And number 6, 10% of children and young people aged 5 to 16 suffer from a diagnosable mental health disorder. Now, you'd answer true or false to most of those. And I think the answers are really what hit me hard. Number 1, false, is the largest. So the second largest is actually back pain or back problems, but it is mental health is the largest cause of disability in the UK. Number 2 is true, 105 billion. That 105 billion, if we work in a way that supports people's mental health, that 105 billion could be used for so many other things. Number 3, false, is 70%. Number 4 is true. We have since 2007, there has been a recent survey and we've gone up 1 place. Number 5 is false, is 20%. And number 6 is true. Now, the reason why I started with that true and false quiz is because you're on this course because mental health and an approach to mental health obviously appeals to you. And I think what really strikes me about mental health is physical health we can all see. If I was sitting on this call right now and my arm was in plaster cast or in a sling, you would know I've hurt my arm. But my mental health isn't always visible. It isn't something that you can see. It may be something that you'll experience by talking to me, or that you will understand by sharing an experience with me, but it's not always obvious. And I want to put this into perspective by telling you my story. I was 7 years into teaching, and as you already know, I came from a background which I played professional rugby for London Irish. I boxed. I enjoyed physical sports, and I grew up around an environment, a sporting environment, that taught me that boys don't cry, that boys have to be strong, that real men don't show their emotions. And that was never my mum's approach. My mum never brought me up to be like that. But it so happened that my social capital in terms of the sports I played and who I associated with, that was sort of the ethos and the mentality that we had. And I was 7 years into my teaching career when my mum passed. And I think when you're brought up in a culture in your sport where actually you're trying to be brave for everybody else, you're not really taking any of that care for yourself. And I didn't take any time off. And we had in teaching, you have whole school reviews, and we had a whole school review. And they came in and they watched my lesson. And the person who watched my lesson said to me, "It's not good enough." And it's the first time in 7 years I'd have been told that my lessons weren't good enough. And I argued because at that point in time, what I was experiencing in my own personal life was having an impact on my work life. And I said, "Send them back tomorrow. Let them come and see me tomorrow." And they did that. They came and visited the following day, and it was even worse. My lesson was. And I sat back and I reflected, and I remember going home that evening and thinking, is teaching for me? Taking a big knock to what I believed was something that I wanted to do, to what I believed was something I was good at. And I started to question myself, is this the right job for me? And I had a really supportive head teacher. And I owe a lot to her, because I went in the following week and there was some distance, in as much as now looking back on it, I can see she was giving me some space and time. And then she called me into her office, and in my head, I thought, here we go. This is the start of her telling me that maybe teaching's not for me. And she didn't. She said to me, "Ben, you need support, and not academically. You need counselling." And my first response was, "No, I'm fine." And she said, "No, I'm sending you counselling." It wasn't a conversation; it was an instruction. And looking back at that particular point in time, it's without that intervention, that timely intervention at that point in time, I may not have gone on to continue the journey I'm on at the moment, being an executive head, having an amazing team around me, all promoting mental health, looking after each other, Centre of Excellence, national awards. That would never have happened if it wasn't for that particular person at that time. I remember going to counselling, and I remember she had booked me in 5 sessions, and I only had 3. And all I did for those 3 sessions was cry. And it was just grieving for my mum. And I would never have been able to speak to you about this if it wasn't for that counselling, because I avoided the subject at all costs. I didn't want to chat about it. But it was what I needed at the time. It was timely. It was enabled me to be in a safe space. And just actually everything that had gone on for me to be able to get it off my chest. And that made me think about actually people's mental health. And what I put up on the screen here is it's a mental health continuum. And this is part of the training that you go through when you look at mental health first aid. And it's understanding that mental health is fluid. And that was my point, my first realization. that it was okay not to be okay, and that we all live on this continuum. We can have maximum mental well-being and fitness, but we can have a diagnosis of a mental health illness, but still be perfectly fine. Or we can be where I was at that particular point in time, was I had no diagnosed mental health illness, but actually my mental well-being and fitness wasn't in a good place because I was grieving for my mum. And this was the first major thing that hit me when I decided to look at a proactive and not a reactive approach, because all of us and all of you on this call will sit on this continuum somewhere. And this is fluid. And at different points in our lives, whether it be transitions, whether it be deaths, whether it be accumulation of what everybody else may see as small things, but it gets to the point where we snap, we will sit on this continuum somewhere, and it is fluid. And with the right timely support that I had at that time, I was able to move from minimal mental well-being to maximum mental well-being. It didn't happen overnight. Recovery never does. It happened over weeks, months, and I still miss my mum today, but I'm perfectly fine to say that, and it's something that I accept. So I was like, well, I want to be proactive and not reactive, and what can I do to be proactive and not reactive? And at that initial point in time, it was about my own well-being. It's about acceptance. And lots of people talk about resilience, but there's also acceptance is extremely important, because there are some things we cannot change, and we have to learn to accept it. And when we come to accept it and know that actually this is what it's going to be, only from that point can we have the recovery. So I changed my own approach and my own focus to what I wanted to be. And when I became a head teacher, I was very aware of my own experiences. I was very aware of my successes in life, and I was very aware of how, with my mum's death, how that had affected my mental health. And I wanted to be a head teacher that understood that teaching and learning is extremely important. And regardless of what business you're in, whatever the crux of your business is, that's important. But actually, to level the playing field, to give yourself the best possible chance you can, we need to make sure that mental health is a priority and that it's a level playing field. So I enrolled onto a youth mental health first aid course. I thought, well, I'm going to take this seriously. I'm going to roll in this course and see what this is about. And the aims of it are to preserve life where a young person may be in danger to themselves or others. And it's the same principle, whether it's youth or adult, these are still the aims, to provide help to prevent the mental health issue developing into something more serious. And that's about, right there, that's about timely intervention. To promote the recovery of good mental health, to provide comfort to a young person or an adult experiencing mental health issues, to raise awareness of mental health issues in the community, and to reduce stigma and discrimination. And that was my starting point. This is what I was presented over a 2-day course. And through that 2-day course, and I talk about the course because we said we would be talking about the training as well, you look at depression, you look at suicide, eating disorders, self-harm, psychosis. There are so many different aspects that you will go through, and what this course enabled me to do when I first trained on it was recognize the signs and symptoms and actually be proactive, because I could see this happening, be proactive in making sure there were support mechanisms in place in the workplace, in the community, and with my staff and in the office I sit in. So when I looked at this approach to well-being, this would be different for everybody. Your parents might be your stakeholders, your clientele, whatever you may want to call it, but the principles are the same. I had 4 bands to this, 4 approaches, and that was staff, children, parents, and the community. And I thought if I can create a culture in whereas well-being is prioritized within my workplace, the children, the parents, and the community, I'm leveling the playing fields. I'm giving a real opportunity for all of those stakeholders to thrive. That's my school. And this is one of the first lessons for me. It's Richard Branson, and he said, regardless of what people may think of him, but he did say something that I totally agreed with, was to learn to look after your staff first, and the rest would follow. And that's where I wanted to start, because I was asking my staff to be the best they can possibly be to support others in their learning and their well-being. And I could only do that by knowing that I was giving 100% to them, that actually I had this open door policy, this open door culture where I was understanding and listening to the difficulties that they may have going on in their personal life. I'll give you an example of this. When I first became a head teacher, it was the time when you used to do book scrutinies and walk around and check books, look at the learning. And there was a particular teacher who there was no work in their books for 6 weeks in any of the books. And I was like, oh, there must be some other books somewhere. And there wasn't. So I called her in. And at first she gave me many different reasons for there being no work in the books. And I called her in a second time. And it was a similar approach to what the head teacher had with me. And I said, how are you doing? And I didn't ask about the work. I didn't ask about anything to do with the books. I said, how are you doing? And she said to me, I'm struggling. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, me coming here in the mornings is the best I can possibly manage at the moment. For me to get out of bed is the best I can possibly manage at the moment. I find no enjoyment in anything I used to find enjoyment in. And I knew right then that what she was telling me was that she was depressed. And only by going on this course was I able to say, right, I'm going to put a support network around you. We're going to work with this together. It's going to be a step-by-step journey, and you're not going to be at the end of it in a month's time. But this particular person's now a deputy head in the school in London, doing extremely well. And it made me reflect on what had happened to me in terms of how I was feeling at that particular point in time. And actually, this person had gone through, for different reasons, something similar, and I was able to give her the support that she needed. This is my staff team, and as you can see, we spend a lot of time enjoying each other's companies, including playing Kaplunk at the bottom of the screen in Belgium, when we decided that actually it would be good for staff to go. We all got on the Channel Tunnel, drove over to Belgium and spent some time not just playing Kaplunk, but enjoying our company. And that all came from actually wanting to get to know my staff, because only by getting to know my staff would they fully trust that they could come to me and say, this is going on in my life. So again, there was a reason for my approach, and it's actually, I want to get to know you and make sure that I can support you the best I possibly can. I will go on to staff again a bit later, but I'm just going through the four areas for you at the moment. We then looked at the children, and we looked at how we supporting the children, and we put it into tiers: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And tier 1 was our whole school. What can we do as a school? Tier 2 was targeted, and tier 3 was outside, when actually we realized that this needed support that we couldn't give. And the reason why I put this on here is because what we found is, if we invested time in our whole school approach and our targeted intervention, the outside support we needed from other agencies such as CAMS and other mental health crisis teams dropped by 82%. So because we had invested in leveling the playing field, and what I mean by leveling the playing field is looking after each other's well-being, it's actually the time that teachers took off, the time that pupils took off, all massively reduced. Our attendance has skyrocketed. My retention of teachers, I've only had 6 teachers leave in 7 years. I've never paid agency staff in the last 2 years to cover classes. So when I'm talking about some of the benefits to an approach for this, it's financial, it's work ethic, it's enjoying what you do. And this is some of this, as you know, it's happened during, well, of course, it's happened during a pandemic as well, which has been very challenging for all of us. So we looked at our whole school approach and different things we could do about that. And this is particular to the school, but when you're looking at your organization, you'd be thinking, right, what can I do within my organization? What can I change? What can what can I introduce to support this whole organization approach? And again, like I said, our tier 2, it came through these different programs as well. And we had our mentoring approach. And I put at the bottom here that the most important thing, and this goes across all organizations across the world, it's the most important thing you can do is listen to people. And listening is a skill. And I mean really listen, like turn away from your computer, stop what you're doing and listen. I'm across a few different schools, so my time is very busy. But if somebody wants to talk to me, if I can't speak to them there and then, I will say to them, look, I know this is important to you. So can I come back to you at 2 p.m. when I have space so that they know that I've got that time to listen to them. And if I'm going to ask you to take anything away from today, is those listening skills in a non-judgmental manner are the only way that you're going to build that trust within your team to make sure they're going to come back to you and trust you with knowledge they're giving to you. We looked at school counselling and outside referrals as I spoke to you. And again, like I said, it's that was particular to our whole school, and that's why I'm not going through that in any more details. But depending on the organisation you work for, the mental health course will go through different approaches that you can take. It will go through the risks associated to each mental health condition that you would be able to identify at an early sign, and more importantly, what you can do about it. And it doesn't mean at the end of it you're a clinician or that you can give medical advice. What you will have is over 200 resources of where you can point people in a direction, say, right, I'm here, I'm going to support you through this. And here's where we can get further support, because it has the list of organizations and charities. Of those organizations and charities that you then have access to, I regularly use about 30 of them, and they're free. And it means that actually I'm able to signpost people in a direction that can support them. But I would never, ever have been able to signpost anybody in any direction had I not created a culture within my organization of it's okay not to be okay. I would prefer somebody to come to me and say, right, I'm experiencing this at the time, and me understand that it's going to be a journey to help this person to recovery, than for me to actually turn a blind eye to it. That person would then go off sick, there'd be no support in place, and there'll be no recovery plan. So creating that open door culture, that open door policy, it enabled me to have those conversations. And like I said, we went on looking at staff well-being. I showed you some of the pictures of my staff and what we do. But one of the things I really wanted to mention here at the bottom here, using the strengths within your workplace. One of I think the most exciting moves that I decided to change within my workplace is I wanted to take it a step further. So, okay, I knew that we now had the mental health first aid in place. I knew that we were the first small company to get the Excellence Healthy Workplace Award for the Mayor of London. That only includes Chelsea and Transport for London. So we're amongst the big players in such a small school. But that wasn't because of just a mental health approach. It's because I decided to take it a step further. So I looked at, okay, we're a wellbeing school, we're a centre of excellence. What else do I want to do? And I spoke to staff and I said, well, does anybody have an interest in counselling or cognitive behaviour therapy or any service that we could potentially use within our setting? And I had a staff member who turned around and said, well, I've done some coaching, some mentoring, and I'll be interested in becoming a cognitive behaviour therapist. And I invested in that staff member. It's £2,500. They had a degree. It's £2,500 for them to become a cognitive behaviour therapist. And then they designed approaches around my staff team, around my pupils, around my parents, which was a set of interventions. Now, those interventions for a staff member, for instance, myself, I had Ofsted last week, so I've been very busy. But that may include actually that somebody comes in and checks on me and says, are you drinking enough water today, Ben? And that really is although that's something at a very small level, that really is actually, that's part of a culture that you've created. But this cognitive behavior therapist went on and created these programs of intervention through cognitive behavior therapy, intervention through a coaching method to be able to support our pupils, our parents and our staff. And like I said, by doing that, we dramatically saw our staff sickness levels drop, and we saw attendance level rise. In Westminster, you wouldn't know this, but in Westminster, the schools are massively undersubscribed. Everyone's fighting for places. Schools are struggling financially. We're one of a handful of schools that has a waiting list, and financially, we're doing really well. That cognitive behavior therapist in the school has a cost associated to it, but that cost associated to that far more beneficial to the cost savings we make through absence, through being proactive in spotting these signs. So it was something that we decided to do, that we saw a significant difference in how it supported them. So then we wanted to know, how can you reflect on what's going on in your organization, because you want to know your starting points and whether actually this is working. And that again will depend on your organization. But one of the things that we found was really helpful was then creating a supervision model within the school, where people will have time to actually share problems, and a solution-focused supervision model, so they have time to reflect, share problems. And actually what normally comes off that is, I understand I'm not in this alone. It's other people are going through what I'm going through, and that enables me, gives me a platform to be able to talk to these people about this. And our CPD to support that. Everybody who joins any of the schools is trained to become a mental health first aider, buys into our philosophy, and it's very clear how we support each other. We need to look at our parents and what are we doing for our parents, because in our organisation, and I keep coming back to our organisation because it'll be different in everybody's, to level the playing field. It wasn't just about the staff, it wasn't just about the children, because at the end of the day, the children go home to their parents. And we wanted to make sure we had that support in place for parents, so that support would then filter down to the children. We started with knowing what services were local, and then we had mental health workshops for parents. They could be promoted through coffee mornings. And like everything else, it was getting to know your parents, getting to know your community, having that open door approach, saying it's okay not to be okay, because by having all of that, they would have a conversation with you. And that conversation is normally the first step to support. We're looking at how you work within your organisation. So for us, it was making sure that there was somebody at the beginning, well, not somebody, there are several people at the beginning and the end of the day on a playground to listen to parents' concerns, for support, to be proactive and not reactive. If I gave you the opposite to that, if parents weren't in that, if staff weren't on the playground and parents did have a concern, the following day that tension would build up, and the following day it build up until somebody then overflows and explodes. So it's looking at actually what can we do to make sure that we're supporting our parents as well. This is something from the mental health first aid course as well, and it's something that I've used on many different occasions. And it's basically, it tells us that our attitudes and those of others have a profound effect on how we support people with emotional and mental health issues. And what that means is this little window on the world is we all sit in that, and that's us. And for us, our window on the world will be very different to our colleagues. So if I think about me personally now, what's really important for me is the mental health. So the mental health of me and others wouldn't be sitting on the outside here. It would be really close next to me on the window on the world. If I asked you to think about a time when you were 16, what was the most important thing for you? And then if I asked you again to consider what's the most important thing for you now, you'd probably say they're two totally different things. And the reason why this model became so important for me it helped me with my listening and my interactions with people, because it helped me understand that actually we're all coming from different places. We all had different experiences, and where we come from and where our experiences have taken us means we would have a different outlook on the world. We all have different stress containers. Again, something that you learn in your mental health course, and that's a stress container is how much stress can you take until you hit overflowing point. And that's different for everybody as well. So when somebody would come to me and say, look, I'm really struggling at the moment because my cat's been unwell.
Yeah.
If I'm not an animal lover, somebody telling me their cat's been unwell it would mean nothing to me. But what this enabled me to do is actually understand that their window on the world is very different to mine. And if they're coming to me with something that's causing them difficulties, I have to listen in a non-judgmental way to be able to say, okay, that's important to you. And not turn my back and think, I can't believe they're talking to me about their cat. Really, really difficult thing to do. I'm going to give you an example. I have twins, they're 12 years of age. And my daughter came to me when she was 11 and told me she had a boyfriend. And I told her, don't be silly, you're 11, no, you haven't. And that was the end of the conversation. As far as I was concerned, I had to go back to her because at 11, that was important to her. And I had to think, hang on, what are you doing as a dad? Do I want her to ever come back to me and talk to me about relationships? Yes, I do, because I want to be able to talk to her about positive relationships and what they look like. But her first interaction with me, because my window on the world was you're 11, you're not having a boyfriend, because my window on the world was like that, I dismissed what to her would have been important at that time. And that frame of reference, where we're sitting at that point in time, really does influence how we react to people. And that reaction to people will either mean that they're going to come back to you to talk to you about it again, or potentially that's the last time they talk to you about it. And that's why our interactions with people who come to talk to us, listening in that non-judgmental manner, and you practice that on the mental health first aid courses, listening in that non-judgmental manner, having the body language sit next to somebody potentially as opposed to opposite them, is so important, because that's the first responder. That's the first point of contact where somebody may be telling you, actually, this is how I'm feeling at this point in time. We looked at the community and how we get what we were trying to do and push that out into the community as well. And these are some of the things that we do in the school. And I know organizations can be amazing at linking with the community and saying, actually, you know what, we care about you. We care about your well-being and what you're doing. And sometimes that's just about knowing what services are in your community that people can use. Because if you're able to support somebody and help them find the right service that they may need, they'll come back to you and they'll tell others how amazing you've been. And if we go through sort of the benefits of this approach, as I said to you before, the staff turnover, we're in central Westminster. In central Westminster, most schools will lose 6 staff a year. And we only have ever lost staff for promotion or because they've gone traveling. And actually, one of the staff members who went traveling has come back and joined us again. So they've come back from Australia and asked if they can rejoin the school. And we had a place, and we said yes. For us, some of the biggest costs for schools are supply costs when staff go off sick. And again, it's being able to reduce that to near or nothing. And that means that the money has been spent on the organisation. For us, that means it's spent on children's education. We're only one of 6 schools in Westminster who has a surplus budget. So we have money in reserves, which helps us to be able to get into plan, resource, and spend the money in a way it should be spent. And I think one of the ones that created a lot of work for us, but was really a joy to do. We advertised for a teacher, and we had roughly 120 applicants for a single teacher place. And we noticed a recruitment and retention crisis in teaching. and we were able to go for 120. Now, the reason why I mentioned that is because it's become very clear, actually, of our ethos and our approach within our school, that people want to come and work here, and people want to come and experience what we're doing. And that gives us the opportunity, if I'm being honest, it gives us the opportunity to pick the right person for the job as well. And that means that they're buying into our ethos, and that they obviously care and can teach, because that's obviously important as well. But we're getting that choice. And like I say, for pupil places in the time and environment where there's a surplus of places, we're oversubscribed. The takeaways before I take questions, because I said I'd leave, I've left less than 10 minutes, but I said I'd leave time at the end for questions, is with the mental health first aid, if it's something that interests you, it's about being proactive and reactive, in my opinion. Early intervention clearly shows success in the road to recovery. And I think if you can design your structures and your organization to be proactive, to identify early signs, to have that open door policy, it's okay not to be okay. I will tell you at the beginning, it's difficult because a lot will come in your direction, but that proactive, not reactive approach really makes a difference. Outwards facing, you look at partnerships, ways of saving money, and well-being at the core of everything you do. Understanding that actually most of us want the same thing, and that's either for us, it may be for pupils and families to succeed. In an organization, it may be to generate income. But what you will find is most of us want the same things. And if you put well-being at the core of that, it works really well. For us, it was everybody being mental health first aiders and going on that journey, and that enabled us to look within and utilize the strengths of the staff we had, such as cognitive behavior therapy. Acceptance, I mentioned that earlier, having the courage to change the things that you can, but accept the things you can't. I want you all to take that away today. It's actually some things, no matter how hard we try, we can't change. And actually, let's accept that and let's be at peace with that. Talk and listen. And I spoke about the importance of non-judgmental listening and people's window on the world. And finally, find time for yourself and the staff you work with. I've spoken about everybody else, and I haven't spoken about myself, but I have an amazing team around me who I know if I'm under pressure or if I just need some time, they'll say, go and find that time. And that's because we trust in each other and we've invested in each other. That's my contact details and that's my name. And as we spoke about the course is depending on where you are. In inner London, it can be more, and in London, it can be up to £400. But through the Centre of Excellence and through working in this capacity with this partner, the course is £125. Now, there are different designs of courses. There's a half-day course, a one-day course, or a two-day course. Now, they're the same cost, which you may think, well, that's bizarre. Well, the reason they're the same course is because the vast majority of the course goes on the books, because you're given a lot of course material, which you keep, which has all the resources that I was telling you about, where you could just turn in and say, right, I want to know the companies or the charities or the support I can get for somebody with depression. And there will be an annex at the back of that, which will show you everywhere you can go. Registration on a national database, and it's an internationally recognized certificate, internationally recognized course. So no matter where you go in the world, that course will hold its value. I've been talking for 40 minutes, so at this point, I'm going to take any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to take any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Ben. I mean, you've raised some wonderful points there about being proactive, and when we're proactive, just looking at the bottom line, the cost savings are phenomenal. But actually, having healthy, happy, productive people is what it is really all about. And I really loved what you said about it's okay not to be okay. You know, I've been in sales nearly all my life. And of course, we turn up and the client says, how are you? You say, yep, fantastic, raring to go, great, fake it till you make it, you know. And actually, that's quite a damaging philosophy. So being able to feel safe and secure and honest, and that's an environment that most of the people on this call are able to create as coaches, that non-judgmental, safe environment. You know, it's really important to remember that. But it's for us as coaches as well. You know, it's walk the talk, because, you know, you're the headmaster, but sometimes you're not all right. And you need to be able to tell your staff that. And sometimes as coaches, we need to go to our supervisor and say, we're not okay. Or a therapist, we go to the supervisor, we get help. And there's no failure or embarrassment, or there shouldn't be, in asking for help. But it's something people struggle with, isn't it? I hear it a lot. I don't want to ask for help, but.
And that's the importance of me starting with my story, because by me starting with my story, because I do a lot of talks and delivery, I'm actually, what I'm putting out there is actually, you know what, I needed help, and that was fine. And without that timely intervention, I probably wouldn't be having these conversations now. I don't know if I'd have been in teaching. I definitely wouldn't have gone back to rugby because they didn't want me anymore. But I don't know what direction I would have gone in. So it is that approach. And I share an office with my headship team, and Laura's sitting opposite me now. And I share that office because actually we experience the same things, and we go through the same emotions, and we bounce off each other, and we understand that it is hard at times. And even with everything that we do, there will always be ups and downs. But actually, as I said right at the beginning, that continuum, and that's okay as well. And we'll work through that. And it's about finding that pathway to recovery. It's about finding that pathway to the best solution. And it's understanding that window on the world, understanding that continuum, understanding the structures that we've created that enable us to be able to do that. It's taken time. It's taken, we started on this properly about 3 years ago, but we're now in a position, like I say, where we're delivering this across the country and across the world, and starting from next year. So it's having that impact on what we've been able to do and what we've been able to share, and it's been an amazing journey, and I've loved every minute of it. Well, apart from sometimes the tears, but apart from that, I've loved every minute of it. But it's been amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely to hear you say all of that. And of course, you're in an office and you're in a community, and you've got that ability to brainstorm and meet people in the corridor. And it's wonderful, considering the pandemic times that we're going through, that, you know, your school is up and running and we can hear children playing and happy and healthy, hopefully. But for a lot of the coaches, and this is why the IAPC&M is so important, because it's a community, albeit an online virtual community. But the majority of our members are business owners. They're solopreneurs. They have nobody to bounce things back to, and they can't do it with their clients. And this is why David and I have worked so hard to have this open door policy. You know, we're both trained Samaritans. We're active listeners. If people need us, they can come to us. And if not us, then we can usually signpost them to somebody else. But let's open the floor to questions. I've had lots of comments, Ben, about this. It's been truly amazing and inspiring. Excellent input. Thank you for sharing your story. What a great example of support, not just for pupils, but the whole school and the community at large. The well-being is so important, very inspirational. Lots of people asking about the certificates. How do they get certificates when they go on the course? Is there an additional cost for the certificates? So I'll let you just answer those quickly while people are thinking about their questions, Ben.
Yeah, so the way the course is working at the moment, it's I will give you an example of a 2-day course. I delivered one to Newcastle, well, to Tyneside the other day. Once the 2-day course is finished, there's some online learning that is given to you that you can go away and do as well. You don't have to do it, but there is the online learning as well. So you have the course and you have 30 days of extra resources should you want to do it. As soon as you fill out an evaluation to say what I was like at delivering, because mental health first aid makes sure that they want people who who can deliver, and it's not just being, they don't let anybody onto the course. As soon as you fill out a course evaluation, your certificate's automatically sent to you. So it will come via email, or if you don't have email facilities, it can be done via post. But once that evaluation is it's only one page evaluation. Once that evaluation is filled out, you are then registered onto a national database to say you are a mental health first aider, and your certificate is sent to you immediately. There is no extra cost for the certificates. There are no extra costs. There are no hidden costs at all. It's part of this work with what we've been doing and what we have been talking about. It's about trying to get that message out there, about trying to give you support structures that you can work within, breaking down the stigma and so on and so forth. Hence why we've pushed it out through the Centre of Excellence and not through me as an independent business, because it's not about profit making, it's about everybody doing this. So there is no hidden costs. One of the questions is there a website for registration? What I will do is if people are interested and we can get a feel for the interest, I would put it through the Mental Health First Aid website, England. I would send all those details on, because there has to be a minimum of 8 per course and a maximum of 16 per course. And the reason why that's not my rules, that's Mental Health First Aid. The reason being for that is, on a course, as you can imagine, there's some difficult content we cover, so no more than 16, so I can make sure that you're okay on the course content throughout the whole time. And the reason for the minimum of 8 is because actually the way it's been set up is you have breakout rooms online now, and you can't do a breakout room with 3 or 4 people. You need a minimum of 8. So I will send through details of where this can be found, and I may do it through a Google poll, just so that we can see actually the appetite for dates as well, because then I can get how you're feeling about this. And it's as simple as us putting a date together. You send an email address, you're registered through the course, it sends you a link to the online learning platform, and you can start your learning immediately, or you can wait for the course and finish your learning after the course. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. So if I understand correctly, you can have the half-day course, the one-day course, or the 2-day course. It's exactly the same content, but the longer you're on the course, the more opportunity you have to practice. That's the difference, isn't it?
If I give you an example, the half-day course, you're pretty much told and you're just spoken to because of the time. The 2-day course is very much interactive. You would take a person through a scenario, so you assign a person, you take them through all the different scenarios that go on, and it's I become more of a facilitator. And like I say, they're the same cost, and I would definitely I know time is important, but if you can find time for a 2-day course, you're immersed into it.
Yes.
Whereas the half-day course, you'll be spoken to. That's the difference, really.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we've still got Ben, who is obviously demanded in the school. We haven't got very much left of his time. So please, any questions, just raise your hand and unmute yourself and fire away. Michael. Did you want to say something? Wait, just a thumbs up. Okay. Any questions, anybody? Thumbs up from B. Yeah, thank you. Did you actually want to ask a question, B, or you just...
Yes, please. Hi, Dawn.
Yeah.
How are you? Hello, everybody. And Ben, that was just, I don't know if anybody else is feeling it, but I was so emotional listening to that. It was a beautiful presentation, totally connected in with where you were coming from. And I'm very enthusiastic about doing the course, and I'd love to do the 2-day. Just the question about the 2-day, is it like a 2-day together, a Saturday, Sunday, or whatever way it might be, or is it spread out over time? That was my question.
Okay. Yeah, it's normally done one day after the other, but there is flexibility because now it's done online. So it's not as if I'm now traveling to a place far away and have to do it. So with negotiation, you can say, right, we're going to do it in 4 half days. So you can fit it into, if you don't have a break, it can be fitted into 2-hour slots or 2.5-hour slots over 4 sessions. So there is the flexibility around it. And I will put together suggestions, ideas, dates, and I will send them across and say, look, this is what we can do. So there is the flexibility. Actually, the online has made it flexible, more flexible than what we've been able to do in person. And thank you for your kind words as well, B. It's appreciated.
That was really brilliant. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Tom.
Anybody else before we wrap up? If you have got a question, because there's a lot of people on the call and I can't see a thumbs up, just unmute yourself and ask the question. Otherwise, Ben is going to have to get back to being headmaster at school. But lots of thank yous for sharing. Great session. Looking forward to the information. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap things up by saying thank you very much, Ben. That was very inspiring. Thank you also for sharing your story. You know, it is nonsense that boys don't cry. And luckily, things have changed, you know, a lot recently. And this is a very, very hot topic, as we've said, which is why we invited you to speak today. Because it is very important.
Thank you so much.
That, you know, not only do we all get in touch with our own feelings, but we encourage our clients to and create that safe environment. So thank you, everybody from all around the world. We've got Philippines, Italy, India, everywhere. And, you know, because you've taken the course online, it means that we can all benefit from your teaching. So thank you, Ben. Thank you for your time. I know time is very precious with you and you're under a great deal of stress at schools at the moment. But everybody stay safe, and I look forward to meeting you all again when we come together for some training and improve our own mental health and those of our clients. Thank you, Ben. Bye-bye, everybody.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.